It was on the 1st of August 1981 that this Andover aircraft of the Queen's flight took off from Eastleigh Airport near Southampton on its way to Gibraltar. The passengers were the Prince and Princess of Wales, who'd married 3 days before in St Paul's Cathedral in London and who'd spent the first 2 days of their honeymoon in Broadlands. Prince Charles piloted his own plane down to Gibraltar, and it was a 7-hour flight, left in the pouring rain and arrived on a beautiful Saturday sunny afternoon. Prince Charles there making a standstill on the aircraft on the tarmac at Northfront Airport. Some of the 200 reporters, photographers and journalists who turned up at Gibraltar for the occasion to make sure that their stories were the best and the freshest and that their pictures made the front pages of the Sunday papers. Making their way to the aircraft, some of the local dignitaries who were to meet Prince Charles and his bride as they stepped down from the Andover. And that was Gibraltar's first glimpse of the royal couple. Prince Charles meets His Excellency the Governor, General Sir William Jackson. The Governor is introduced to the Princess of Wales, and the royal couple meet Lady Jackson. The couple is taken just across the tarmac to meet the Chief Minister, Sir Joshua Hassan, and Lady Hassan. It was also at this point that 8-year-old Stephanie Brabin, a deaf and dumb child, pupil of St Martin's Special School, presented a bouquet to the Princess of Wales. The bouquet was in red, white and green. Red and white, the Gibraltar colours, and green, the colours of the Prince of Wales. And Stephanie was chosen for this particular occasion, a combination of two things: the Princess of Wales's love of children and the Prince of Wales's interests in the International Year of Disabled People. As they walk along the tarmac, filing in front of the many press photographers, a brief word from His Excellency the Governor about the Rock. This, of course, was Princess of Wales's first visit to Gibraltar. The last time that Prince Charles was here was in 1972, when he was undergoing his naval training, and he flew out here to the Rock to board the guided missile destroyer HMS Norfolk for part of his naval training. His Excellency introduces the royal couple to His Worship the Mayor, Mr. Abraham Surfety, and Mrs. Surfety, and they move swiftly on to meet the Minister for Public Works, Mr. Featherstone, and his wife, Mrs. Featherstone. A brief chat with the Minister. In the foreground, men of the 1st Battalion, the Staffordshire Regiment, who provided the fanfare as the couple alighted from the Andover. And so they proceed to meet the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Peter Isola, and Mrs. Isola, and the recently arrived Air Commander of Gibraltar, Air Commodore Atkinson and Mrs. Atkinson. A brief word with Air Commodore Atkinson, a man of aircraft and flying as well, no doubt discussing the flight, the 7-hour flight from Southampton to the Rock. Standing smartly to attention on the right-hand side is Sergeant Stone of the Gibraltar Regiment, the man who was to drive the royal couple through Gibraltar, Main Street and Rosier Road into the South Mole, where the couple was to board the Royal Yacht Britannia for their honeymoon Mediterranean cruise. So the royal couple steps into the chocolate-coloured Triumph Stag that was gleaming for the day. The open-air car, or the open car that was to take them through the city, where so many people had been waiting since 9 o'clock in the morning just to catch a fleeting glimpse of them. Prince of Wales' standard flying proudly from the car. And so the car drives off on the motorcade. A final wave for the dignitaries, for the press photographers as well. And as he turns his head, Prince Charles waves at a few people who'd gathered on the airport terminal balcony just to watch the couple arrive. And this was the scene at Main Street, as I was saying, where people were lining up since 9 o'clock in the morning. Everything had red, white and blue in it. Be it a red t-shirt, a pair of blue jeans, a white pair of shoes, everything had something of the three colours of the Union flag. Smart young admiral saluting, waiting for the couple to file in front of him, and two very patriotic Gibraltarians, one wrapped in a Gibraltar flag, the lady dressed in red and white, of course, the colours of the Gibraltar flag. This was the scene at Casemates, where the band of the 1st 4th Scout Group, together with all other Gibraltar Scout groups and the Guides and Brownies, were lining the route for the royal couple. Candy floss gave the whole affair an atmosphere of a carnival.
Yeah, running.
Even an umbrella, or could we say a head parasol, for the sunny Saturday afternoon. And so the royal couple arrives at the piazza, making sure that everybody gets a wave. Not just the people who were lining the pavement for so many hours, but all those who were also lining the balconies or pouring out of balconies and windows all along the route. The Guard of Honour formed by the Gibraltar Regiment standing at the convent. Balloons, streamers, and even confetti for the royal couple who had married just 3 days before. Also in the motorcade were His Excellency and Lady Jackson, the Chief Minister, Sir Joshua and Lady Hassan. Everyone from the age of 9 to 90 made sure that they had nothing else to do on that Saturday afternoon but to see the royal couple drive through the town. Senior citizens from Mount Alvernia, who we can just see on the corner of the screen there, were brought into town very specially to catch their own glimpse of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Cameras of all shapes and sizes for the family photo albums, for the family Super 8 movie projector. No doubt films that will be stored with pride throughout the next few years. And so we arrive at the dockyard. Britannia was majestically moored just alongside the dockyard tower. Some of the 256 ratings of Britannia were lining the deck. Quite a change from the previous day, where I was at the dockyard, and I saw that the ratings were making the most of the last few hours of their stay on Britannia to catch up with their suntan before it was work, work, work during the Mediterranean cruise. Another few hundred Gibraltarians had gathered beside the dockyard and along the South Mole. They also wanted to catch their glimpse of the royal couple. Two police outriders, followed just immediately by the car with the Prince and Princess of Wales. Prince of Wales' standard, flying very proudly on the car. Waves again, a surge of applause and cheers, and a gesture from the Princess of Wales as if to say, "I can't believe all this is happening." And there we reach the final point of the motorcade, a motorcade which was to take 25 minutes along or through the route, the streets of Gibraltar. More press photographers there, the royal couple alight from the car. Prince Charles meets the Flag Officer Gibraltar, Rear Admiral Mackenzie, and the Princess of Wales walks in front of the car to give those photographers a chance for another click for a photograph for the next day. As with Air Commodore Atkinson earlier on, Prince Charles now talks to Flag Officer Rear Admiral Mackenzie, possibly about what a good day it was for sailing, and indeed it was, the perfect day for a sail into the Mediterranean. And so it's along the red carpet and up the gangway for 2 weeks of peace and quiet, following the hustle and bustle that preceded the wedding since the 24th of February, when the engagement between Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer was announced at Buckingham Palace. They step aboard the Royal Yacht and they're greeted by Rear Admiral Paul Greening, the captain, incidentally the only admiral in the Royal Navy who commands a ship. More waves, more smiles, and more applause and cheers. Those who gathered at the dockyard thinking it was their last view of the royal couple. Little did they know that they would be on the deck right the way out, through round Europa Point and along the east of Gibraltar until they got out of view. The other dignitaries who'd followed in the motorcade were then entertained briefly by Rear Admiral Mackenzie before they were invited on board Britannia for a private reception in the company of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The Standard flying proudly from the mast of the yacht, the ship dressed entirely. It takes 3 seconds to dress the ship, and we shall see a little later on how it took those same 3 seconds to get all those flags down and packed away. And of course, vital to any holiday is the luggage. The Royal Air Force canteen van brings it from North Front Airport. Ratings look after it, take it aboard, and they shall be looking after it throughout the cruise. The crowd still waiting expectantly for another glimpse. Once again, red, white and blue, prominent everywhere you looked on that day. This was the scene at the Camber, where people had gathered along the shoreline, in hundreds as well, just to watch the Royal Yacht sail by. Few boats at this time of the day. There were to be almost 200 later on. These had been arriving since 5 o'clock in the afternoon, waiting along an imaginary line between the Royal Yacht and the north entrance to the harbour, waiting for the Royal Yacht to pass in front of them so that they could all form up behind her and escort her out of the harbour. All manner of floating craft was on the sea, from the rubber dinghies with the small outboard motors, to the sailing dinghies, to the most sophisticated of yachts. They were all afloat with their flags and all their guests on board. And guests on board is what we're seeing at the moment. The dignitaries go on board the Britannia for their private reception. First, His Excellency the Governor, General Sir William Jackson, followed by Lady Jackson. They're followed by the Chief Minister, Sir Joshua Hassan, and Lady Hassan. Followed by the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Peter Isola and Mrs. Isola, and the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mr. Alfred Vasquez and Mrs. Vasquez. And finally on board, Rear Admiral Mackenzie and Mrs. Mackenzie. For the dignitaries, it was their first time, for some of them, first time to meet the Prince and Princess of Wales. Sir Joshua and Lady Hassan had, of course, met them in London, as they were guests at the royal wedding and guests at a dinner party given by Her Majesty the Queen in honour of the royal couple, to which they were present. And so, all too brief, the reception over, and the dignitaries come ashore again, and things will get ready in a few moments for Britannia to sail. Band of the 1st Battalion, the Staffordshire Regiment, which was to provide the musical entertainment for the royal couple while they were on board and still alongside the dockyard. And there they are on the afterdeck, Prince and Princess of Wales, coming out to see all those who had taken their time to assemble at the quayside to see them off. A quick tour of the deck for the Princess of Wales. After all, this was her first time on the royal yacht, and she had to know it inside out if she was to live on it for 2 weeks. The band of the Royal Marines, the resident band on the yacht, is well on board, and there they are, pulling in the hawsers and the ship being undressed, ready to set sail. Very distinctive and unmistakable colours of red, blue, white and buff of the royal yacht, incidentally the largest royal yacht in the world. It doesn't carry the name because it suffices to show the royal coat of arms on the bow and the royal cipher on the stern. Back on the after deck, the royal couple, as the ship starts to move. The rock in the background, a farewell to the rock, a very brief stay of 1 3/4 hours, literally a staging stop. The Prince takes his princess's hand for reassurance, while work continues undisturbed on board. Prince, no doubt explaining that that was the same route that he took when he arrived in Gibraltar to board HMS Norfolk, which was also alongside the dockyard tower in 1972. A special wave for those watching on television who couldn't make it down to the tower. And a quick gesture to the side, where the fire tenders of the Admiralty Fire Service had come to the quayside to sound their sirens as a form of farewell to the couple. There was a wave from everyone. The dockyard staff, those who had gathered there, lunged forward to see if they could get that little bit of a closer look of the couple. Sailing past the south entrance to the harbour, and the boats begin to assemble as the royal couple looks down into the sea. The sirens heard faintly in the background, with the band of the Staffords still playing. So everyone starts to cross the imaginary line to escort the royal yacht out. As I was saying earlier on, about 200 boats, 200 craft had turned out for the occasion. The MFVs, the RAF launch, police launches. A couple of hours before landing at Gibraltar, the Prince of Wales sent a message to His Excellency the Governor saying that he expressly wished to stop on Britannia for 5 minutes off Catalan Bay. It was the least he could do to say his farewell to the Catalan Bay villagers who'd decked their village to the nines for this occasion. He wanted to show his appreciation for this event. Hundreds more gathered at the North Mole as the royal yacht proceeds through the north entrance out to the RAF mark. Not only the town had reached fever pitch, but the sea was beginning to boil as well, with so many crafts bobbling about on it. Spanish mainland serving as a backcloth, there goes the royal yacht, just rounding the RAF mark now, and now travelling southwards along the North Mole. Those who couldn't get too near the royal yacht even let off their warning flares, hoping that the couple would catch a glimpse of them and in turn wave them a farewell. There is the sea literally boiling, more white than blue on it, as all steam by just following the yacht. Good representation there of everyone who turned out. Tugs, RAF rescue launchers, private yachts, the motor fishing vessel, another tug in the background that seemed slightly top-heavy on that day. And there they are again, making sure that everybody could see them. Just showing their appreciation for everybody having given up their time to turn up to give them a right royal send-off. The Prince and Princess of Wales on the afterdeck of Britannia. That's the tug I was talking about just earlier on. It looked as if it was going to sink, the amount of people who were on that. But nobody wanted to stay ashore. More television cameras, more radio microphones, more journalists, more reporters. Making sure that they got the early evening bulletins and scooped their rivals. Just rounding Europa Point now, where even more people had turned up for that special glimpse. And so we proceed northwards on the west side of the rock. More photographers, the water catchments in the background as the Royal Yacht Britannia approaches Catalan Bay, where they were to say their final farewell on this, the 1st of August 1981, a day that Gibraltar will remember with pride, the staging stop of the royal couple.